Warning: this show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewers' discretion is advised. This show may contain strong language and sensitive or controversial topics. We are not attorneys and are not providing legal advice. The views and conversations are our own thoughts and feelings, and therefore, purely speculation.
The entertainment world and beyond.
Skywalker air miles, feeding on a service, gliding on water, constricted and conflicted.
Welcome to Purely Speculation, a show that exposes the harmful effects of the criminal legal system. I'm your host, Heather Lewis, the Executive Director of the Reuniting Family Bail Fund and practitioner of participatory defense. On this show, you'll learn about the unspoken horrors of the criminal justice system and meet fierce allies and advocates. We will make the best of our traumatic experiences. We will get angry. We may even cry. We most certainly going to laugh, but one thing's for sure, we're going to keep it real. Welcome to Purely Speculation.
When they free my sins and let them loose, they was killing me, I got scars to prove, got me paralyzed, I could even barely move. Out the way I took the pain again.
Hey, y'all. Happy New Year. Welcome to RIA. Welcome to volume 23 of Court Watchers. We had to do a little flip-flop for the new year because we have a super special guest and we had a scheduling conflict and we did not want to have y'all miss out on a live conversation with our special guest. So welcome to RIA. And Happy New Year, and welcome to volume 23 of Court Watchers. How you doing, love?
All right, how are you tonight?
Hey, well, it's we are here with heavy hearts, right? And so there's a couple of things. I want to start with a moment of silence, and I'm not sure if you've been following this story at all, but Robert Brooks, who is the man that was murdered by the Mercy Correctional Facility corrections officers, about 13 of them, including the nurse, stood by while the corrections officers beat this man to death. He was handcuffed, he was in the infirmary, and the video is so graphic. Like, you know me, I can't watch that stuff. Like, it's so triggering to me. But as I was, just kind of, and this was on December 9th. So this has been over a month now that he had lost his life to the corrections officers. And when you hear the description of his injuries, bruises about his head and face, bruises on his neck, both sides of his neck. He had massive bruising on his torso, his arms, his legs, bleeding from his groin. And so when I was reading those, the descriptions of his injuries, I knew I couldn't watch the video. And so several of those corrections officers, one had previous complaints against them for violence. Two, as I was reading more about the story, everybody's like, oh, they need to be fired. But those guys are unionized. And so we know when you're unionized, there's this hierarchy of discipline. And, just like the boys in blue, these CEOs, they're with the same tribe and they get protection. And so, yeah, they might be terminated from Marcy Correctional Facility in New York, but they may end up down here, MCCF in Montgomery County, or CFCF in Philadelphia, or at any other correctional facility in the country with, these violent natures, murderous, as murderers. And so just wanted to give a moment of silence for Robert Brooks and just stand in solidarity with his family and anybody else that has experienced police violence. Follow his story, get angry, stand up, speak out about that. But we also have another moment of silence that we want to speak upon, and it is Jermaine Pierce. And maybe Taria, do you want to talk about Jermaine? I've only known him. I never met him. I know Jermaine through stories from his stepmom and you all and other family and friends about Jermaine. So why don't you take this one and share about Jermaine's life, who just recently lost his life to gun violence over the weekend.
Jermaine. Whew.
Maine groceries. I'm like, where groceries
Yeah.
come from? I'm like, what is
Well,
that?
that's funny because that came in his later years. Because
Okay.
I know Maine as a young man, like a brother to me.
Mm-hmm.
He was definitely a big piece to my heart coming up.
Right.
Jermaine and my little brother are like 6 months apart. They played on the same basketball team. We went to elementary school together. They went to middle school together. They went to high school together. Until Jermaine went to Kennedy Kimbrick, and they played against each other. They used to play on the
Mm-hmm.
same team, and then they played against each other when he went to Kennedy Kimbrick. Jermaine was awesome in football and in basketball.
That's what I heard.
He wore the jersey 18 for football, and he wore the jersey 20 for basketball.
Okay.
Jermaine was a very, very star athlete. He should be in the NFL today.
Right.
Jermaine was drafted to Syracuse on a full scholarship for football,
Mm-hmm.
and he took the illness. And
Mm-hmm.
once he took the illness, with a clotting disease, that he discovered during his time of playing, that he could not play football anymore. So he stopped going to school after that.
Right. Yeah, I'm
And
sure that's a devastating blow to have
yes,
that life altering, course of action change.
yes. And as his friend said the other day, he said it the best. Once he got sidelined, it just like it took a lot out of him. And he had to think of another path. So I guess his next path was comedy. And that's
Oh,
where I
okay.
guess he came groceries from. And he will always have you laughing. He always has something smart to say. He always had a name
Right.
for somebody. He never ever was against the challenge. He wouldn't back down from anything. And
Right.
he was a protector though. He was definitely a protector. Definitely of his mother, definitely of his sister, his loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
his brothers, his sisters, his uncles, his aunts, anybody that knew him. I mean, even if you was extended family, he
Right.
still was to protect you. You can agree to disagree, but he still will have all love for you. And
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely devastating to Norristown. Definitely a big loss. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone's hurting right now. Everyone's hurting. And our prayers is just to his mother, love on her, his father, his
Mm-hmm.
brothers, his sisters, his
Right.
stepmother, and all his aunts, uncles, cousins, and just friends and basketball coaches that had him in the past, and just
Right.
mentors. It's a big blow to everyone because he was loved by many,
Right.
and everybody has a story to tell with Jermaine.
Right. Right. Right.
And this was a real big hit to Norristown, and it
Right.
definitely brought back a lot of memories for me when I got the call.
Right.
And I could just go back to time that he was sick in the hospital, and all I could think about from then on up, how he was
Mm-hmm.
and all his goodness. And that's why I always want to share, everything that he did in life. It was a testament and a testimony, and it was a legacy, you know. Even him sitting at that table signing that dotted line with his mother, all
Mm-hmm.
smiles when he was getting accepted to Syracuse.
Right. Right. Proud moments. Proud moments. So, yeah. So we just want to, like Teresa said, just sending love and prayers out to the Pierce family and all the extended family and friends that loved him. And you said his janazah is going to be on Thursday. So that information is out there, so you all can follow up and keep the peace. Gun violence is senseless, and there's other ways to handle conflict or disagreements or even just embarrassment. Sometimes our pride just makes us puff up, and we don't think about the consequences of our actions. So not only did Jermaine lose his life, and everybody around him, his family and his friends lives are forever impacted and changed, but there's a suspect there's somebody that actually committed this act of violence that is going to have to face justice for this. And so there's another family that's going to be impacted by this act of violence that's going to devastate their family, because this is going to be a life sentence, or double digits, depending on how they want to play it out in the court system. But, potentially could be a life sentence for this person. And that's going to have devastating consequences for that person's family as well. So it's just people just got to do better. We got to do better with, our emotions and our feelings and, things like that. Is just making better decisions, gaining emotional intelligence and control and discipline. I understand, situations, things kind of get heated, but this wasn't that. It didn't have to be this. So, rest in peace to Maine. So with that, we're going to go into, our, before we get into all of the court watching stuff, we're going to take our commercial break just to kind of bring us back, center us a little bit, because there's some activities that are going on. Because not only did we have all of that, that's weighing heavy on our hearts. Next week is, we are going to be swearing in a new administration, right? And so that alone brings in its own challenges. And, folks have been struggling with what the next 4 years are going to look like, how it's going to impact us personally, how it's going to impact our freedoms, how, with this Robert Brooks, Project 2025 and, with the protections that they already have through the unions and just that, Blue Tribe, the Project 2025 is also trying to solidify and make it just law that you cannot sue law enforcement officers because of the violence that they inflict on citizens. And so there's lots of things that are, that we're just looking at and kind of trying to figure out. And, if we had a crystal ball, we'd be able to kind of reduce some anxiety and kind of have a better grasp on what's to come, but we don't. And so on Saturday, January 18th, on the courthouse steps here in Norristown is the People's Rally. And there's a whole slew of organizations across the county talking about the issues that have been criminalized: LGBTQIA rights, abortion rights, women's health rights, immigration rights, civil rights, all of those things and more that we are going to be talking about at this rally on Saturday, the 18th, on the courthouse steps. So if you're available, if you're not doing anything, come on out, join the rally. There's going to be DJs and art projects, like craft projects. There's going to be a lot of things going on that day. Loads of speakers. Commissioner Jamila Winder is going to be speaking. A lot of other leaders in the community. Too many to name that I can't think of off the top of my head, but there's a list. You can go to the website. It's on social media. So that's something that is kind of going to be happening on Saturday. And did we have another graphic? I don't know what another graphic that we had for this commercial. But we can get into the call of the trial. So I'm going to talk about my experience, because I'm really, really interested in what your new experience has been watching the preliminary arraignments on Zoom. So my first day back in court was last week. Judge Carpenter had the call to trial list. And I tell you, it looked like the first day of school. Everybody was there. Every attorney that you and I know and that other people know was in that courtroom, going through the call of trial. And it was just really interesting to watch and to see, and just, that was really how we were used to seeing, the court progress in those. But I got to observe, I was there on the request of another family, which actually didn't get to see their case because it was such a long day. But I actually got to see the case of, and we know this and folks will know it, but I'm not going to call any names. An aggravated assault, a very serious aggravated assault that I think the victim had, like, I think you had said, I know they were in a coma. I know they're, lost vision in one of their eyes, but also, I don't know if you said that person actually flatlined in the hospital. Did that happen? I feel like
Yeah.
we had that conversation.
Yes.
So technically the person died and was able to be revived in the hospital. So it was a severe attack. And I struggle with this because we always want the best outcomes for people. People that, we just talked about our behaviors and our emotional intelligence and managing our own vessel and knowing when to walk away and when your life is threatened that you need to fight. And this wasn't that either. And, the system, I feel like failed the victim in this situation because, we all, negotiated pleas and wanting to get the best outcome. But the victim, I think, in this case was truly ignored. I think the facts of the case were ignored. This defendant is violent. This defendant is dangerous. The defendant did have a history of violence, and that wasn't taken into consideration. And I think you'll agree that when we are advocating for families and people that are facing charges, we want them to accept responsibility for their actions, right? We want them to have culpability, what you did do versus what you didn't do. And to us, like, that's justice. And this person did not accept responsibility. I mean, they said, yeah, I hit this person. I assaulted this person. They did not have to say, yes, I assaulted this person. I, knocked his eye out of the socket, broke his eye socket, broke his bone, put him in a coma, did all this, he flatlined. They didn't have to admit to all of that. The victim statement brought that to the judge's attention. And the judge actually asked the ADA, well, how did you guys arrive at this decision, this plea deal? And it was some kind of vague answers that, I spoke to the higher ups. You got, the guy's name, who's number 2 behind underneath Kevin Steele? What's his name?
McCain.
Spoke to McCain. He spoke to the detective in Norristown, and there were some whatevers with the case. I guess maybe there were multiple people involved and they couldn't really figure out who did what. But that was the reason why they settled and offered a plea deal for simple assault. And this person got 2 years probation. And it was just like, I felt bad for the victim because, he went through hell. And, we think about the victims, we look at all this stuff all the time, victims that lose all their money. There's a case now, a contractor stole like $500,000 of people's money, saying he was going to do this contracting work, took deposits and never did the work. And he took deposits to the tune of $500,000. And it's like, they're like, oh, well, his sentence will be determined on how much money he can pay back. Well, if you had $500,000, you didn't just stick it in the bank. You know what I mean? He's spending it. So how is he making these victims whole? And it's like, okay, so this guy does whatever time he does, 3 to 6 months, or, maybe he gets years, but it doesn't make the victims whole. It doesn't give them their money back. It could be their life savings. It could be whatever, their houses, whatever he hired them to do never got fixed and they're out of the money to fix it. So the destruction is just like we talked about, how the impact of, people committing these crimes, the destruction in people's lives, it goes so far beyond just what happens in that courtroom that day. And so it's just like, people just got to do better. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's disheartening to me, to see that as adults, that people are still, behaving in this way. And, whether it's mental health or whatever it is, I don't know. But yeah, it's just sad. And so unbeknownst to me, was going to see that particular case that we all knew about. I just didn't know that it was that day. And I was there to see it. And it was just a sad sight to see. And for the defendant to be all cheery and smiles, I just hope that they take this seriously and change their ways.
That's funny that you say that, because I actually had a conversation with someone today, and we were actually talking about law. And it's funny because people know that we do advocacy for the bad guys, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was explaining to this person when they asked me, like, they're just straight across the, basically, you do the crime, you do the time, no cut and dry, you need to go to jail. They don't got sympathy for a person that does something that's not right.
Right.
So I said, well, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I said, I'm a defense advocate. So we go to these courtrooms, and I said, I'm on court a lot. I watch the different things. I get the list. I go and I watch arraignments. I go and I have a group that we do that. So if I don't go, somebody else will go. We don't deny anyone that needs the help. It's just that sometimes we might refrain from conflict of interest in certain cases, so we step aside. So this particular case, I couldn't come in person because of conflict of interest, but I know that one of my colleagues would go, and that was happened to be you. Mm-hmm. And as I was explaining this to this person earlier, I was saying, don't think that we don't know right from wrong. So we want to get that out first. I said, because let me tell you why we fight. I said, we don't fight to get murderers off. We don't fight to get drug dealers off. We don't fight to get rapists off. We fight to get innocent people off. And what I tried to explain to this person earlier was, it's a lot of people in jail that's not guilty of their crime.
Right.
So that's the people that get our attention the most. Now, when people come to us, we take their cases and we help them to navigate the system, but we don't know the truth of the matter until we go into these courtrooms, or we go into this discovery, or we go into deeper into the case, because half of them don't tell us the whole truth when they come about to us.
Right.
So we're only going by what they tell us, and you can only know what somebody tell you from the naked eye. Until we see with the broadened eye and see deeper into the situation, then that's when we know either it's going left or it's going to go right.
Right.
I said, and I took them back to a time when I sat in a case in 2020. It was COVID, part of COVID. It was the first murder trial coming back into Montgomery County from the summer over break. And it was a young man that killed his girlfriend from Pottstown.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a horrendous crime.
Right.
And I was sitting in on the defense side because I was called to advocate for this young man. And as I'm sitting there, I went into the hallway on a break, me and another person in our hub. And as we're sitting there, the victim's family was out there also. So the victim's sister was asking who everybody was there for. So we try to refrain from really, being neutral. So we don't kind of like expose who we are. I just said court observing. Mm-hmm. But somebody else wanted to take their own what's I'm trying to say, take it upon their self. A public defender wanted to take upon herself to say, oh, they're a defense advocate. She's a defense advocate. She's here for the defense side. So I'm sitting there like, okay, you just throw me under the bus.
Right.
So the victim's sister says to me, you're going to hell. And I say, so the public defender that went and put me under the bus, head almost came off her shoulders when the lady said, you're going to hell.
Right.
So I said, oh, for real? And that's my reaction, because I was just shocked she said that to me.
Right.
And I said, well, why did you say that? And she said, well, you know, as a Muslim, you should not be defending a murderer. And I said, well, I thought in life we shouldn't be judging others in all religions. It don't matter if
Mhm.
you're Muslim, Christian,
Right.
atheist. It doesn't matter what you believe in. Thou should not judge.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, you're sitting up here telling me what I'm going to, and you're sitting here as a Muslim, and as a Muslim, we're supposed to forgive. So we should forgive. We should have forgiveness. So I just left it alone and I walked away because I could have said a lot more to her, but I already knew she was emotional. I already knew she was
Right.
going through her own thing. A lot of it was her own guilt because her and sister didn't have the best of relationship, and the next time she see her sister is on a
Mhm.
screen and on an autopsy table,
Autopsy.
and it
Mhm.
wasn't right. And it wasn't right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I had to
Mhm.
let her be great. But I'm just saying this to sum up that just because we do this work, it is not always easy for us to do.
Right.
Because, like you said before, it's cases that we have had come across our desk where they're close to us. There are people that we know. There are
Mhm.
families that both sides is hurting. And we don't know which way to really pick or choose because, like you said, everybody needs support. And some people, it's always two sides to a story, and things happen and change in a situation.
Right, right. And one of the things, that comes out of participatory defense and just the movement in general is that the system by its design is intended to isolate, it's intended like they stack charges. Like the system is not like honest. You know what I mean? All these players that lead up to a trial, from the police and the charges, from the ADAs, stacking the charges and what they're, how they're describing it. And, you may have one instance, but they tack on 15 other charges that have nothing to do with it. They're just because, one begets the other, and so and then you have, the rules of engagement when you're doing it, when you're having a trial. We were just making sure that, a bunch of things, you know what I mean? One, that the defendant gets a fair trial, but two, you as the victim's family, you don't want them prosecuting the wrong individual. So if the police and if they're getting it wrong, you know what I mean? We're there to be like, look, they got this wrong. This is not right. So we're going to point out the inconsistencies. One, because you've got an innocent person that's potentially going to be going to jail, but also two, the actual perpetrator is still on the street. And so there's a lot of things, but like you said, people are in their emotions, and because they lost a loved one or whatever, or they're a victim, they're in their emotions and they want justice. And sometimes they don't care who it is, just to know that somebody's paying for it. And it's like, no, that's not the right way to go about it. If you want justice, then you really, and that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of self-awareness and reflection and, prayer and support. And you know what I mean? So it's not an easy thing to do. So we are there. Yes, we're supporting that individual who's navigating, because sometimes they don't have anybody else. And guess at the end of the day, they're still a human being. But also, too, our main goal outside of that is holding that system accountable to making sure that they are doing things properly and that they have the evidence to prove whatever charge that they are putting on somebody, so that we don't have innocent people that are going to jail. We see people come home every day after doing double digits in prison for them to be exonerated and found not guilty because of corrupt police, corrupt DAs, all types of things. Lazy detective work, informants that lie, informants that get promised things. You know what I mean? There's all types of points of intervention that something can go left. And so we're just a set of eyes. No one else does this stuff. Nobody else is sitting in there wanting to pay attention, because it's intimidating, it's scary, and it's ugly, some of the things that you hear. You know what I mean? It really, really is. So kudos to you. I take my hat off to you. Pat ourselves on the back that we're doing the work that most people don't have the courage or the stomach to do. But it's so necessary because we are impacting people's lives. We are getting better outcomes. We are getting innocent people their charges dismissed. And so, the fact that we are involved, the bottleneck that happens in the court process where people are just sitting in jail because the court actors and the clerks can't get dates together, and attorneys don't show up or whatever. You know what I mean? They're just doing what they do, and people sit in jail unnecessarily. And until you start asking questions about somebody, they don't move. They just sit there. They get forgotten.
Exactly. And that's funny that you say that. No, it's funny that you say that because I'm actually, why I'm on here right now, I watch Law and Order all day long. That's one of my favorite. SUV is what I kind of like the most.
Yeah, I like that.
And I know it's a lot of repeats. And SVU, and it's crazy because Special Victims is really neat, but it's also, like you just said, sad. And it's funny because it's a repeat one of the ones that were kind of, as we're talking about justice and the courtroom and the court system, even though it's factual, we know that it happens everyday life. And this specific episode that's on right now is the one that I really don't care for too much because it's about a hate crime. It's about a transgender that got pushed over a bridge over a hate crime. And the transgender died, but it was 3 boys that was teasing her, and the one boy tried to take her camera, and she fell over the bridge, and she got died one from her complications. At the boy, all friends, and all 3 of them was under the ages of 16. So the 2 boys was able to stay in family court and just get a slap on the wrist and get probation because their family had a little bit of money. And they turned around and took the 15-year-old, that mother was a working mother, couldn't be home, had a single mother, living in the projects, and they took her 15-year-old son to charge him as an adult because she couldn't afford nothing other than a public defender. These other 2 kids had private attorneys. So they gave him all the charges and gave him 7 years at 15 years old in a state penitentiary for adults.
On
and it saddens me because it goes to whoever got more money gets a better outcome. Absolutely. And it's crazy that I say that because that's exactly what they said Bill Cosby said. For the 3 years that Bill Cosby had unjust and set inside of Phoenix jail, his whole thing was if he had enough money to get half of them people out of there that was in there that was innocent, and the reason they couldn't get any play in the courts is because they didn't have no dollars. Money talk, bull crap walk. And Bill Cosby seen some scenes up there for them 3 years. He was sentenced 3 to 10, and they still got 3 years out of him before he got it overturned. Right. But he was able to see how this justice system, he might have been partially blind, but he wasn't all the way blind.
He ain't dumb.
He ain't dumb by far.
His ears work just fine. And you hit the nail on the head. Like, if you got the money, and that case that we saw, he had a private attorney. He was able to pay a decent attorney to kind of work that deal and that mouthpiece. Had he had just a public defender, it may not have gone that way. And it too is like, the respect factor. Do the ADAs respect, our public defenders like that to really kind of work those kinds of deals and give people that can't afford it? Are they giving those kinds of deals out? Do they have a quota? You know what I mean? So that, because you said you had that same attorney, and that attorney ain't do the work, got paid, but ain't do the work. So it was, and I wanted to have that conversation. I said, "Oh, we're gonna have this tomorrow." Like, maybe he only got 3 deals a week or 3 deals a month. You know what I'm saying? And that hey, whoever gave me the most money, y'all, all right, I only got 3. Who got the money? Right?
But it's funny
So,
you say that, because not just about the money, what you just said hit the hammer on the nail
mhm,
too. We know that this same attorney was an attorney that had a big case, and a case that no one wanted to touch.
right.
And I ran into another attorney, and he was like, oh, he's crazy for that. And I didn't understand why attorneys kept on saying that. So
Right.
you had one that just wasn't scared to bite, to hold his mouth, and he was able to drop the jewels to why he felt like that. So I said, can
Hmm.
you tell me why you feel like that? He said, because it's times that we have to make one hand wash the other. So it's times like you give me one and I give you one,
Right.
and they need both sides. So when you're
Hmm.
going against that side, it makes it harder for you as attorney, and it makes it harder for you to fight for your clients.
Exactly.
And that's
And,
why he told me that. So it's a
and
deal for a deal.
it's crazy. Like, you got to think of Alice in Wonderland, right? When the Red Queen, the Queen of Hearts, she's literally playing chess with live people, right? She says, "Oh, you moved to." I don't play chess, so I don't know the board, but it's literally people that have a horse on their head that looks like a pawn, the queen, the king, all these other, the castle, and they're literally walking. That's exactly what this system is doing. It is literally using real live people to play chess for these actors to get somewhere in life. They have an agenda, whatever it is. We don't know what the prize is. I have no idea what these folks are getting out of it. I don't know if it's just some sick mental game that they're playing, like God, that they're literally playing with people's lives. Like, okay, I'm gonna give you this one if you're gonna give me those 2, or I give you these 3, but that little boy, we gotta make an example of somebody gotta take that spot. You know what I mean? It's like it's already mapped out, and it's just like, if you got the right money, they don't care who it is, really. It's just you pay enough money. Oh, you owe somebody a favor. It's a lot of those things that, come into play. Oh, we won't be in trouble because we just reading them up and down tonight. But that's really what it is. I mean, we get a select few that don't do that. Like, they really, and they get blackballed too, right? We know attorneys that stand up and advocate. They are advocates for their clients, and they get hell. They get hell. They got targets on their back. Other attorneys don't like them. You know what I mean? They constantly, at odds with the judges, constantly, telling the judges that they're wrong and reminding them of the law and all these kinds of things. Like, it's interesting. So folks that are afraid to kind of do this court watching thing, once you get over the fear, we have an intern that's starting, so I'm gonna have to introduce you to her. She's gonna start watching, some of the folks that bear watching, and she was like, "I'm so scared." She was like, "Are they gonna?" I'm like, "You're not there because you have a case. You're there because you're observing." And she's like, "What are they gonna do?" And I'm like, "The most they might do is just ask you, do you have a case?" And you're like, "No, I'm just here observing." You sit down and you mind your business. You take your notebook, you write whatever, as long as you're not recording or doing anything like that. But I understand people's initial apprehension to want to go in there because it's scary as hell. You know what I mean? It's designed that way. They don't want you coming in there observing. They want you to be afraid. They want you to think some mysterious way that if you go in that courthouse, you ain't coming out. You know what I mean? And you don't have a case. And so we definitely are encouraging folks to please follow us. If you want to learn more, watch the podcast, watch our Court Watchers edition, see what we're talking about here. Be intrigued, be curious to see like what's actually happening with these cases and how these court actors are performing and moving. Follow us on our social media, like our like and follow and share all of our stuff. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, X, and but all those other social, our socials. Like, we are trying to get this out there because the only way this stuff is going to change is when those judges see us sitting there every day. whether it's me, whether it's you, like you said, a colleague, an intern, you know what I mean? If you're in school for criminal justice, you need to do an internship. If you're in there for social work, you're in there for psychology, whatever it is, mental health, social services. You know what I mean? We see people that are unhoused. We see people that have substance abuse disorder. We see people with mental health crisis, all of those things. And they are just shipping them off to incarceration because there's nowhere else for them to go. And so the only way, we have to be their advocate because they're looked at as they're criminals and you can't trust criminals. And so whatever they're saying, whatever. So if Mr. Brooks, Robert Brooks, were alive and could still talk and he said, oh, they beat me to death, they'd be like, no, they didn't. They still trying to hide it. And they had body cams. Like they expose and they're showing it and they're just they will find a way to make it go away because of who he was. He's a human being. You know what I mean? So we're gonna because I'm about to hit the what the fuck moment because I just gave myself a headache because that is just so insane that, you know, people can do this to other people and not even bat an eye. It is nothing to them because they don't view them as human beings. And that's got to change. And so we need more people in the courtroom watching these cases. So we're going to talk real quick, where are we? About the Zoom hearings that you've been watching. And I think Zach has it, but I just want to check to see, do we want to post the link? Oh, it'll be in the comments. So if you want a safe way to observe or kind of get your feet wet, dip your toe in the pool of court watching, preliminary arraignments are on Zoom. They're every day, 9:30, 2:30, 7:30. 9:30 a.m., 2:30 p.m., 7:30 p.m. Every day, 7 days a week. You can observe these proceedings. The arraignments is when somebody gets arrested. So that's the first point of contact. Check it out. You know what I mean? And if they ask you, you just say, I'm just here observing. You ain't get it from us, but you know, you just pop on and you see how the judges behave. You see, you know, the assembly line of people just coming in and out, in and out, in and out. So tell us what you've been experiencing, because you've been watching these Zoom hearings for about a month now. What's your take? What's your assessment versus the online? And you've had some interesting experiences from the 9:30 in the morning versus the 7:30 at night. So I would, you know, just share with us real quick.
Well, it's funny that you say that because, you know, it goes to say the freaks come out at night. So it is definitely interesting. And it's so interesting that I really literally get myself together in the morning to get on 9:30 because 9:30 matters, because once a judge is up early at 9:30, it's usually the same judge through the rest of the day.
Right.
You can see by noon when they didn't have their coffee or they didn't have nothing to eat that
Right.
they're way different than the energized that they had 9:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because I have seen some cases on here that it makes you cry. Some make you cry, some make you laugh, and some make you almost pee yourself.
Right.
And some of the questions that some of these alleged defendants asked, I'm like, what made you say that? And it goes to show that people don't know that first line, you have the right to remain silent. Like anything that you do will be held against you in the court of law. And it's sad because the judge sees them hanging themselves. And it's like you just talked to the attorney backstage in the breakout room, and you still came in here and start asking a bunch of questions or start telling your case.
Right.
Like
Right.
the judge, like, don't talk. You know what I mean? This is just a bail hearing.
Right. This is not the place.
And it's not the place. But I have also seen some harsh judges. I've seen some good judges. I've seen some okay judges, and I've seen some compassionate judges. And even some judges that even interacted with the audience when it was at a break to ask
Right.
questions, like putting us in as a human, like, you know what I mean? Not just looking at the ADA or the public defender as the only one on the Zoom. Also,
Right.
just engaging us. So, what do we do? What made us do this kind of job? What is our background and things like that.
Right.
So, and it's crazy because I didn't know until the other day when I had hearing at 9:30 that they can actually see who's on watching also. And
Mm.
one of the people that got out on bail was like to my daughter, "Oh, I seen your mom on the other day." And I'm not gonna lie, when I seen her
See,
on, I felt like my day was gonna go good and I wasn't gonna have a hard time because I know
right,
she
right.
know
It's
what
gonna be
she be doing. So I'm gonna be all right. So it's funny because I didn't know that he talked about. I was gonna say what's up, but then I was like, "Oh no, I'm in court." So
uh-huh.
you
Yeah,
know,
but
definitely is some cases to watch,
right.
and definitely getting people coming straight off of um substance abuse
I was going to ask you
and
that. It,
everything.
9:30 in the morning, like, are they still intoxicated? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because and is that appropriate? Because that is one of the questions. Like, do you understand what's happening? Are you under any influence that would prohibit you? I mean, they're not asking you to make any
Well, mhm.
a plea or anything, but they aren't coherent. They probably ain't gonna remember that day. So they're
Well, one thing I did see about this though, when you're like that, I did learn about this, that they will take that person. Like, it was a situation the other day where the girl was not, she wasn't able to do the 9:30 hearing because she still was trying to come off a hangover. So they
Mhm.
pushed her all the way back to 7:30, gave her
Okay,
some time to detox.
right.
So
Get it together.
they will do that for them
Oh,
to get
good.
it together.
That's good. That's good. That's really good to know. So yes. So again, we're putting a call out there that this is available. This is something that our folks can do is the community. And so, real quick, super quick, we can wrap this up with something kind of positive. But we always look at it like, he could do better. So the 2024 pardon recap. So I don't know if you were following. I know I've talked to other folks that are attorneys and things, and just last month, Biden pardoned about 1,500 people, but these people were already released because of the COVID Care Act, right? So they weren't incarcerated. These people were already. He just commuted their sentence, so they didn't have to return. They didn't have the threat of having to return to incarceration. So about 1,500 people that were already home from incarceration that he gave commutations to. 39 people who were convicted of nonviolent offenses got pardons. So this was just like at the end of 2024. But his total administration pardons and commutations for 2022, 9 pardons, 75 commutations. 2023-24, 11 pardons, 47 commutations. So, I don't know the track record for other administrations and things like that. But I mean, you can go to WH for whitehouse.gov and you can get all of that information. I imagine you could probably get previous administrations pardons, but it's all like nonviolent, a lot of drug offenses and cannabis and all of that. So yeah, but that 1,500 in that 1 month was probably the highest number any president had released for folks. But again, not sure if anyone that was actually behind bars in a cage had received a pardon or commutation. Or do you know of any?
Yeah, I think some of the people that was on death row, he was giving
Yes.
pardons to, but a couple
Yeah.
people didn't accept it. A couple people
Really?
didn't. Yeah, they didn't want it. Two long time death row inmates that was in there due to, I think, drug selling or something. They didn't
Mm,
want the pardon. They didn't want the pardon at all. So they kind of
mm.
denied it. And I'm hearing that it's actually because you're talking about the new president that's coming in that was going to possibly pardon some of the January 6 people. And
Mhm.
one lady already spoke out that she doesn't want a convicted felon as a president to pardon her. So,
Ah,
and she wants to keep her charges. So it's, and then, is also the battlement between the vice president and the president not seeing eye to eye on the pardons of the criminals.
mm.
So that's going to be interesting to see.
Yes, it will be. Yes, it will be. All right, so I know I dropped the F bomb, so I'm gonna ask you: do you have a what the fuck moment? If you know what I mean, because we've had a lot, and it's been a lot, and we had a lot to catch up on for the beginning of the year. So what you got for me?
I just say what the F are we going to do better that we
Mhm.
can just. We already started the year off bad, so let's see if we can continue and get a little better. And when we
Yeah,
gonna learn that nobody wins.
no, there are definitely no winners when it comes to stuff like that. Um. So with that, I will say thank you, peace and love to you. We we closed out season 2. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that hung in there with us for season 2. All of our guests from season 1 and season 2, you'll see in this little graphic right here. So we're looking to build season 3. We're building it out. We're adding some new things and inviting new guests. So if you want to be a guest on Purely Speculation, you can hit us up, DM us or any of our social media handles, emails, phone numbers. It's out there. So, but yeah, all of our social media clips on Instagram and Facebook are the YouTube channel that we have that houses Purely Speculation. We just are truly grateful for everybody, for all the support and the folks that's still hanging in there with us. Taria, thank you for all your dedication to the folks that, we're supporting and the families that we're helping navigate this treacherous shark-filled waters that we call the criminal legal system here in Montgomery County. And, it doesn't stop here. We got stories for days. I mean, we could be here for hours and hours and hours talking about the stuff that we've experienced over the last 5 years as a bail fund. And, 2025 is 10 years that we've been practitioners of participatory defense. So, we just got loads and loads of stories. And so we're just going to keep fighting to get this word out there and just ask y'all to stay tuned, tune in, and get involved. And with that, I say peace and love. Good night. I will see you later, my sister.
Good night. Peace and love.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Purely Speculation. If you learned something, share something. Please like, follow, and share this show. The more our communities know, the more they are empowered and the faster we can create change. Purely Speculation would not be made possible without the generous support of the Community Justice Exchange, the Health Sparks Frank E. Boston Black Justice Fund, Philadelphia Foundation, and Reform Alliance. Thank you. Booyah!
Intuition different, already lived and dreamt it. Visions make my vision clear as I'm jogging through this fucking life. I be fuck like what the fuck said. Body and I'm all set. Baby, can you be my Cardi B on an offset? Toast we got it, self we building still material.